So, welcome. And welcome to I Do What I Want, episode 4 of the podcast. I took a little break over Memorial Day to have a little break. It will be 2 episodes a month. I have decided on every other Sunday of the month, and the months that have 3 Sundays, such as May, yeah, I'm just going to skip one because I'm busy. Anyway, this podcast is about my author journey and about a lot of other stuff. I am planning on having some guests who are fellow authors. My friend Oksana is going to be coming on sometime in the near future, I hope. And any other, writers or authors or people who just want to be my guest. Yeah, let me know. Hit me up, send me a message, put it in the comments. Let's figure this out. Anyway, let's get this going. So episode 4 is going to be all about the World of Cel. What is the World of Cel, do you ask me? Well, the World of Cel is, and I'm going to be looking down to check my notes for those of you who are watching the video, so apologies, it's tough to record video and audio. I'm not professional at this. But the World of Cel is the fantasy world that I created for my second novel, which is called Spare the Swallow, which I talked about a little bit in my last podcast episode 3, which I hope you've listened to or will listen to now. And this is a totally different fantasy world from the world of Rashan, which is the world that To Save a World and the sequel to that, The Queen Witch, which I'm presently working on, is based in. And Cel is a Greco-Roman fantasy world, very strongly based on the ancient Mediterranean world of, Earth. For those of you who might not know, my degree is in world history with a specialization in the ancient Etruscans of Italy. I am certifiably obsessed, and I created a race called the Dockvens, who are a fantasy magic-wielding race with beautiful, sparkly gemstone eyes. And they're basically a super-duper fantasy twist on the actual ancient Etruscans of Italy, who were the actual builders of Rome, FYI, and a lot of credit. There are a lot of things that Romans are given credit for the Etruscans actually did. The Romans did a lot of their own stuff too, but the Etruscans built Rome. Etruscans did a lot. Well, and one of the things, the reason I chose to call this world Cel, C-E-L, and I honestly have never heard it pronounced. I've read it so many times, and in my head it's Cel. I suppose if you wanted to put a hard C on it, you could say Kel, or if you wanted to put the Italian twist on it, it might even be Cel. Because in Italian, as a general rule, there are exceptions, but as a general rule, if you have C and then a vowel like C-I is pronounced chi, or, C-E would be pronounced che, but if you have C-H-I, it's actually pronounced C. And you skip the ch, the H sound, but anyway, so I say Cel, and if I'm wrong, let me know. If you know how the ancient Etruscans, which they didn't speak Italian, they spoke Etruscan, which is a completely dead language and hasn't been spoken in thousands of years. What we do know of it's a completely unique language in itself. It's not related to Latin. So we really aren't sure how it sounded. So it's my best guess. But if you have more insight into how it would have sounded than I do, please. If not, just bear with me, because I'm going to say Cel, and that's just going to be how that is. And there is an inscription, and Cel is, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. So Cel is actually the goddess, the Mother Earth goddess. an ancient Etruscan mythology. Her Greek equivalent would have been Gaia, which I'm sure we're all familiar with the terminology or the name Gaia. So Gaia is Cel, Cel is Gaia, very much like the Greek and Roman gods were interchangeable. The Etruscan gods had their own, like the Etruscan goddess Uni was the equivalent of Hera or Juno. So, it's all the same. so they're all one and the same. And Cel is the Mother Earth goddess. She is the female embodiment of the world itself. So Cel, in the fantasy world that I created, she is a goddess, but she is also the world itself. And one of the things that I really enjoyed is there's an ancient Etruscan tomb in Tuscany by, I didn't write down the name of the lake. My apologies. By a beautiful lake in Tuscany. And again, I might be completely butchering the pronunciation of this because nobody speaks ancient Etruscan anymore. It's mi celus atial selthi. And this inscription on this beautiful kind of temple to the goddess, the Mother Earth goddess, the direct translation of that would be, I belong to, or have been given to, Cel, the mother. So there were a whole group of followers and things like that. Much honestly, you could liken it to modern day Catholic nuns. You could or even priests in that regard. I don't know. I think that Cel probably had male and female followers, but people who go into the clergy, they in the Roman Catholic faith and in other faiths as well, but they give themselves to their God, or to the Christian God, or in this case, these people would have given their devotion and their life to Cel, which means, and I specify the Catholics because, number one, I'm Catholic, so relatable, or I was raised Catholic, but also because people from other Christian faiths, the pastors have their own families, have their own wives, all of that, and no judgment. But if you are a Roman Catholic priest or nun, you don't do that. If you decide to go into the clergy, you have given yourself to God, and that's it. Like, you don't. You don't have anyone else. And that was as far as I understand it, the view of the followers who devoted themselves to Cel, the mother of the mother of the world. And that was the same feeling, was they would give themselves to Cel, and that was their partner in life as well as in afterlife and everything else. They were, they didn't marry. I don't think that they were expected to be celibate. The ancient Etruscans weren't that kind of culture. They actually, by a lot of standards, they weren't like sleep around crazy people or anything, but they were what some people might think of as more liberated in that regard. But the name Cel is the Mother of Earth, and I really loved that, and I really wanted to tie in that because I'm based, the main race that the Docvens that I created, and Docven is just a word that popped into, as if you're a fellow creative or writer, there is no basis for any reason ever for that word to have existed or had come to. I just thought of it and I was like, sounds like a good name. I'm going to call this pretend people race Docvens. I like the way it sounds. easy to spell, easy to read. Yeah. So there's no basis of any sort of anything other than I thought of the word, sounded great, used it. But it's they live, the Docvens. It's all based on the ancient Etruscans, the mythology, the goddess Uni of Etruscan mythology. I changed the name of her a little bit. I kept Cel the same because I just felt like doing that. But the goddess Uni in my book is actually the goddess Ushi. And I just, for my own amusement, I suppose, I changed her name to Ushi in my book. And she is the supreme goddess of the cosmos. She's the head female god, and plays a huge role. And something else about Cel is the main character of the book. They learn, or they have these dreams that they supposedly belong to Cel, and there's a whole like prophecy and everything like that goes into that, which I think is very cool, and I don't want to have any spoilers for you, so I'm gonna not say too much. But the whole the Mi Celas Atial Selthi inscription that's on that ancient Etruscan temple of the god of the Mother Earth goddess really hits. And I actually came up with the whole book, and I read it before I ever even found out about that inscription. I thought, wow, that ties in perfectly with what the theme with the main character is, and how she's being told in dreams and things like that she is given to Cel, and that she does not belong to anyone else. She doesn't belong to herself. She belongs to Cel, and that is something that is very frustrating to be told that you don't belong to even yourself. You belong to this higher power. Damn, that would suck, wouldn't it? We all like to believe that we're the master of our own fates, and I personally think that for the most part we are. But there are an unlucky few, perhaps, maybe depending on however your way of thinking is. At least in my writing, most people have their own free will and can do whatever they want, but there are an unlucky few for whom higher powers have plans for. And that's just brutal. And, and just like a little aside that's amusing to me is in the Etruscan calendar, the month Celi, sweetie, I'm videoing. So for those of you who saw, that is my husband. And this is live, so yay. You totally forgot that I was videoing this. Where was I? Right, the Etruscan calendar. My apologies for those who are listening and not watching. Anyway, the Etruscan calendar, the month of September, in the Etruscan calendar, the month is Celi, Celi, or Celi, perhaps. Again, pronunciation is open to interpretation. I lean on the Celi simply because the ancient Etruscan language, again, has no basis in modern Italian at all, or even ancient Latin. So probably didn't sound, they probably didn't use the Italian pronunciations. But that is the month of September in our modern day calendar, which, isn't it interesting that the Mother Earth Cel, her month of the year would be the month where things are being most bountiful and harvested and everything else. I thought that was a nice little aside, because September, and I am no farmer, but to my understanding, is one of the most bountiful months of the year. That is when a lot of the summer crops are coming in. You have a lot of the grain harvest and so on and so forth. It's a very bountiful month, generally speaking, around the world, and in the Mediterranean in particular as well. So it's nice that most, what I believe to be is probably the most bountiful month of the year as far as agriculture is concerned is named after Mother Earth. Isn't that? It's kind of sweet. It's kind of nice. So to talk a little bit more about it, what I actually did is I for the map of the world, it is kind of an upside down version. A very, very, if you're looking at it, I flipped a map of the Mediterranean upside down, and I kind of changed I didn't make because the Dockfins live on a peninsula. They live in ancient Italy. Again, the World of Cel is hugely, super strongly based on ancient Mediterranean world. So, or at least the part of Cel that I'm writing about in this book. So you have, I flip it upside down. So you have the peninsula that would be Italy, and then instead of Africa being below it, it's above it. Where you would have Egypt and Tunisia and da 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 da, and then below, instead of above, you have France and Germany and all, like basically the same. It's not those countries, but those same shape, very, very similar, same shapes, because I did want to create something. It's the same climate. They have the olive trees. It's basically, I just really wanted to write a fantasy of the ancient Etruscans. And so I did. It is ancient Italy with the beautiful frescoes and the columns, and the Pompeii is actually, I know, contrary to some popular belief, but Pompeii was not a Roman city. It ended up in the Roman Empire, but that's an Etruscan city. And it's a great depiction of a lot of Etruscan culture, a lot of those frescoes, the art, all of that's super duper Etruscan. So that is, Pompeii was one of the Etruscans. Well, the Etruscans built Rome, did all of that due to social differences. There were a small population as well. They had a league of 12 cities. The area of Tuscany, those 12 cities, by the way, still exist. And they're on, when my book comes out, I hand drew the like inverted map that I told you. And the League of 12 Cities are the same 12 cities. I tweaked the names a little bit, and ancient Cortona, which in the ancient Etruscan times I believe was called Curton, but same place, is something that I made the capital city of what I call Mirari, which is one of the very, very, very early derivative words for the word mirror, which I think is just pretty. And I had no reason other than I made up that word, or I looked up the derivative for mirror. I loved it. I thought it was a beautiful name for a capital city that would be glistening and shining, kind of pretty thoughts in your head. So that is that. But other than that, the ancient cities in Tuscany, like for example, if you know about Montepulciano, Perugia, Chiusi, these are all ancient Etruscan, or Orvieto. Those are all, if it's a city in Tuscany that has been around for a long time, the Etruscans built that. The Etruscans, of course, as I've said like 15 times now, they built Rome. They designed Rome, the original layout, the Etruscans, like grid pattern of the streets and everything. That was them. The Romans, honestly, bunch of sheep herders. The Etruscans came in, they built a city. The the Romans, who were a different people, a different tribe. At the time they were a tribe. It was before the empire. It was a tribe of people who did just kind of herd sheep and do that sort of thing. And then this, at the time, more advanced civilization comes along who had already built these cities and that sort of thing. And they built a city for them and they came into it, but there were huge culture clashes. The ancient Etruscans were one of the ancient civilizations that actually had gender equality. Genuinely, they did. They were the inventors of the gymnasium. You're welcome, people who love going to the gym. AKA my brother, shout out. And a lot of other people I know. So that was not the Romans. The Etruscans invented the gymnasium. The Etruscans, women and men simply lived equally. And this is another reason why the Etruscans they had kind of an ancient world reputation of being promiscuous, was because their people, men and women, women were allowed to go out and be people. Like, honestly, very much how women can just go out and be people. If we would like to have a relationship with somebody and we're not married to them, that is our choice. And it's not frowned upon by society in general to have that as, consenting choices and everything. In the ancient Etruscan culture, marriages did happen, but ancient Etruscans were also one of the little bit rarer cultures that they did marry for love. Their political, because marriage started, as much as we love to romanticize it now, and it is a romantic event now in today's society, but quite frankly, throughout most of history, marriage was not a romantic event. Marriage is a political move. It's a political move. It's a business move. It would be how you consolidated your land, your businesses, how you kept an alliance alive, all of that sort of thing. That is really at the core. Like, that's what marriage was invented to do, because prior to frankly, long prior to Christian faiths and all of that, if two people loved each other and they just wanted to be together, then nobody needed to marry them. I mean, and I am talking thousands of years ago. And the only people who actually felt the need to get married were the upper class, who needed that political alignment, who needed to say, okay, your land and my land are merging, get together. Like, make it happen, that kind of thing. Or you are the ruler of this kingdom, you're going to marry this person who is the child of this other kingdom, merge the kingdom, have another child, that child is going to rule everything, that kind of thing. That it's their political business alliances. The Etruscans actually kept their politics and business separate from the marriage culture for the most part. Not to say that those things didn't happen occasionally, but in general, marriage was not used as the tool to solidify that, because women were not looked on as a bartering chip in their culture. They were looked on as people, and that was nice. So they, often if people did get married, it was simply for love, and that was it. And a lot of people in Etruscan culture didn't get married because maybe they just didn't feel the need to go through the officialization of it, even if they spent their whole life with someone else, whatever. But it was a very different set of values from the Romans, who very much like the ancient Athenians, did not view women as true citizens or even full-fledged people. The ancient Athenians of Greece were much, much worse about this, but we won't get into that. But by the way, ancient Sparta, really nice. They were actually quite, much more... I'd have to research it more to tell you for surezies, but they were also more gender equal. interesting. And it was actually one of the, Athens and Sparta like hated each other. So that happened. But one of the things that was constantly a sticking point for the Romans and their upset with the Etruscans and the Etruscan ruler was that women were allowed to be members of society, that women were allowed to be full-fledged people. They were, and Roman women, and not to say there aren't some standouts, but let's be frank, a lot of the female standouts of Rome came later in the duration of the empire. They came later in the early days of Rome. And even those who did, the women who managed to gain the political position, they were born into it, they married into it, they still had to find a way into it that was this, that was a more what we would consider a route through a man to gain that power. And the Etruscan women simply, that just wasn't their culture. They just weren't women. Women could just have a good idea and open a business and do all of those things, and they were allowed to share equal space with the men. Roman women were not allowed to do that. They were not allowed to go out in public without an escort. They were not. They were essentially very traditionally speaking and very, very old Roman world speaking. But like this is, way prior to to Caesar and all of that. They weren't even supposed to speak in public. They weren't supposed to. They were supposed to just be baby makers who sat alone and did embroidery and raised children. That is what the ancient pre-mega empire Rome was about. And the ancient Athenian Greeks certainly agreed with that Roman ideal. And even though the Greeks and the Romans were very dependent on Etruscan culture. Etruscans, again, were the basis of the Roman Empire. If the Etruscans had not stepped in, built the city, given the Romans the tools, which, by the way, those Roman fighting techniques with the legion and the shields and the spears, that's a frickin' Etruscan formation. They taught them that too. That's not. It's annoying too. The Etruscans were really cool, you guys. I still have some issues, but and I'm going off on a tangent because I love the Etruscans so much. But we all have heard the story, or at least when I was in elementary school, when I was first learning about Rome, ancient Rome, the story that I was initially told in like second or third grade was that the emperor of old Rome was a bad, unfair ruler. And the Romans rose up against him and kicked him out. And that was the Tarquinian, I think. I don't have it in front of me. I'm very bad at pronunciation if I do not have the word written out in front of me. So super apologies. But the and the Rape of Lucrece that Shakespeare wrote, that is Tarquinians, and those are the Etruscan rulers. And the Romans rose up against them but they were first handed and spoon-fed this whole culture and all of this knowledge. One of the reasons that Rome fell was because things, hundreds of years later, of course, because things were breaking and people didn't know how to fix them. The ancient formula for cement that was used to build the Colosseum, we don't know that anymore. We've never been able to replicate that particular formula for cement. You know why? Because it was freaking Etruscan. And the Romans, once they had enough tools, they hated the Etruscans, but they used them and they needed them and they gained the knowledge. And then as soon as they did, they committed genocide. They did. They hated them. They wiped the culture. They were burning. And there was a time in the ancient Greco-Roman world where instead of learning Latin in schools, the children, the educated classes were learning Etruscan, because that was the most they were one of the most educated peoples in the ancient Greco-Roman world. They had great wine. They had great horses. They traded, which, by the way, this is all the dock vents too. I just like copied and pasted and gave them magic and like a longer lifespan and some magic features. And that is that, yeah. So the dock vents are the ancient Etruscans, and the book does mirror a lot of what happened in actual history during a certain time period where people were rising up. Of course, I took a lot of liberties. It is not a direct historical take, but if you are familiar with the ancient world and the fall of the Etruscans at all, or anything like that, then you will definitely find a ton of Easter eggs in the book, down to actual names used, little obscure prophets. I did research just for the sole purpose of having this like that. Another thing that I did was the ancient Mediterranean Sea, or the Mediterranean Sea. Like I told you, I inverted the map, and I changed the kind of generalized, the small shapes of certain things and all of that. But the Mediterranean, I actually call the Sea of Calma, which is one of the root Indo-European words for calm, which the Mediterranean is known for being. Not that it doesn't have its storms occasionally and everything, but it's actually quite a safe sea as far as weather and things like that are, by comparison to a lot of the other seas. It's very calm. So that's there's a lot of nods to the ancient Greco-Roman world in the World of Cel, and I really had a lot of fun writing in it and just basically creating a world that is a complete copy of our own ancient Greco-Roman world, or at least, I put my own little flares on it, but it really is. I just copied and pasted. And that is something that I honestly think a lot of people who are maybe thinking about creating a fantasy world, and you can do it this way too. It's how I created Rashawn. Is you have to do it completely from scratch. You can't be inspired by the real world or even another planet like Pluto or whatever. You can't. You have to. Since it's a fantasy world, you have to just pull it out of thin air, essentially. But I personally don't think that gives that fantasy world a lot of good grit. I think that we all live on Earth, right? And it is really cool to have some fantastical things that would never ever be happening on Earth and all of that. But I think for readers to really relate, particularly if you are going to, like me, be basing a culture or some characters and things on an actual culture or society from Earth, whether it be modern or in history or something like that, I think it gives a lot of extra grit and realism to your pretend place if you use elements, or even, like I did, honestly, kind of a copy-paste deal of our own world. I think being inspired by our own world, or even what we know about Mercury or Neptune or whatever, gives people something that at least subconsciously feels more tangible, makes it more real, and that means that your readers are going to feel it more acutely, emotionally when they're reading. Which is the goal, right? We want them to feel connected. And if you give them something that they already know about, in a sense, and it's so easy for them to picture it, even if you don't make it as blatantly obvious as I have made it in Spare the Swallow with the World of Cel. For example, the World of Rashan in my book To Save the World and the upcoming sequel, The Queen Witch, pardon me, that is a lot of now the world itself I did just kind of like draw some funny lines, put it together, and ta-da. But the world itself, a lot of that is very strongly based on ancient Celtic or Gaelic cultures, and there are a lot of elements in there that I took from the ancient Gaelic peoples and put it into Rashan. Now the shape of the continents and all of that, but that has nothing to do. But you know what? A lot of the natural structures and the the weather patterns and all of that, and even to a large extent the Irani tribe is very strongly based on the ancient tribes of the British Isles. And that gives it a little bit more heft and a little bit more truth. And your readers know it's pretend, they're smart, but when you're reading something and you're getting emotionally involved, it helps to have something real to relate it to that triggers within your readers so that this fantasy world becomes real to them in their mind. And that is something that I like to do as an author, and that is something that I would encourage other authors who are maybe struggling with creating a world, if they would like to create a fantasy world or even a fantasy city or something like that, is you don't have to do a like New York is Gotham situation, if you're into the comic books and everything. You don't have to take Gotham, and obviously Gotham is supposed to be a pretty strong mimic of New York, at least I believe it is personally. There are some differences, but pretty similar. You don't have to be that obvious, but if you give it elements of things that people know are real in their minds, then I believe it will be something that resonates more emotionally and sticks better in the brain. Because if you're talking about an ancient Etruscan and the landscape of ancient Italy with Tuscany, the tall cypress trees and the rolling green hills, people, even if you've never ever been to Italy, you've seen the pictures. You know it exists. You know there are olive trees there. You know that there's a lot of great wine. You see the fields of summer poppies bursting out. It's beautiful flashes of red and all of the against the green, and you've at the very least aware of it in this modern world, even if you've never seen it firsthand. And that gives something to hold on to that's really fun, I think. So in my world building advice, I will say, if you're completely lost, think of what inspires you about this world or another known world, another known planet that we know about. And, I don't know how many moons Saturn has, but, Saturn has multiple moons. So does Neptune, that kind of thing. And so maybe your world has multiple moons. Give it something that we actually know is real, in a sense. Give people something to hold on to that is true. And we know it's possible because Neptune has more than one moon. And the moon, we know that, okay, I don't know. Again, I have not researched this at all, and I do enjoy science, and I do enjoy listening to lectures and things, but I do not pretend to retain a lot of that knowledge. I think it's extremely interesting, but I don't always remember all of the cool stuff I heard. But I know that several moons within our solar system have been found to have enough atmosphere that, theoretically speaking, could support life. And so if your world is your world a moon of a larger planet? That kind of thing. Like, think about something that we already know is plausible and possible, or absolutely true already, as a fact already, and build your fantasy world using those tidbits, because those little nuggets of realism help to formulate a concrete base for your world, and it makes the readers go, yes, this place is possible, this place is true, and that makes them enjoy the book even more and possibly get more wrapped up in the world. So yeah, I think it's been a little disjointed. And I'm sorry for being distracted with people popping in and all of that. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions on world building, if you have any advice, honestly, I'm no expert. I've made a few worlds. I've had some fun. And by the way, also have fun. If you're not having fun while you're creating a pretend place, frankly, I think you might be doing it wrong. You should be enjoying it. You should be having fun with your journey. It shouldn't be like complete chaos or anything, but it should be exciting and thrilling to be creating such fun. Like I think about the Xanth world of Piers Anthony, where there are pie trees and pillow bushes, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's so much fun, and what a cool concept, which, by the way, I haven't read those in years and years, but if you haven't read them, it's really exciting. Like, I think there was a cotton candy bush too. I don't know, but definitely put your own spin on it. Enjoy what you're doing, because above all else, even if you go, this is ridiculous and stupid, it's a fantasy. You can do whatever you want. So that's it. I guess thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting me. And again, if you have any questions, go to my website, hollisjoemccullumauthor.com. You can email me there. You can hit me on Instagram at hollisjoemccullum. You can comment on the YouTube videos, or in Spreaker. You can comment. This is in Spreaker. This is on Spotify. To my knowledge, you can't comment on Spotify. I think you can just rate. But yes, talk to me. I love feedback. And again, if you know any enlightenments that I don't, feel free. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm very willing to accept that I may be incorrect sometimes. And tell me if you have more information about something. Nobody knows everything. I believe it was Plato who said, that the wise man knows that he knows nothing. And that's a complete paraphrase, but you get the point. Thank you so much.